Welcome to the May 29, 2022 episode of the Boxing Source Radio Show. I am your host, James Bell, the leader of the Boxing Source on social media. You can catch all our news, notes, and whatever it is through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, you name it, we got it. You know, and what we got here for this particular episode is something where we're going to go in depth about the event that happened over at the Barclays Center yesterday and a few things coming off of that. Plus, we have some good time here. We will look ahead to the following week's action, which does include some world title bouts in the lightweight and the super bantamweight division. So we got a good number of stuff that we're going to be talking about here, but we just gotta chop down, what was going on over at the Barclays Center, man. Main event, of course, with Gervonta Tank Davis versus Rolly Romero for the WBA lightweight championship, the WBA regular lightweight title. Of course, the super title is held by George Kambosos Jr., which we will talk about later. But we just want to get in this thing here with Tank Davis and Rolly Romero. Of course, this is like a grudge match of sorts, as both of these guys have been chopping it up back and forth in reference to a potential fight against each other, right? And the thing about it is that of course, in the weeks leading up to this particular bout and the days leading up to this particular bout, it was mainly Rolando Romero kind of like carrying the trash talk for most of this. In that he's gonna say, listen, I'm gonna fight Tank Davis and I'm gonna knock him out. I'm knocking him out in one round. He's gonna go down on the first punch that I throw. Pretty much something like that. And of course, you had the whole thing with the that very first press conference. Both of them were drawing at it, and Romero's trainer, Bullet, was talking trash, and that man Tank Davis called that trainer Booker T. That was just I was like, yo, that to me still gets me, man. When you call the man Booker T, man, come on, man, that was just bad. But still had everything going down as far as like all this stuff about a rumor of the two guys supposedly having a sparring session with each other, and Roly claiming that Tank Davis sidestepped the sparring session. But you did see Tank Davis after the weigh-in festivities talk with a few people as far as like saying that, hey, I got the evidence right here on my phone saying that, hey, when it was time for Romero to come over and hit the gym for spar, he didn't show up. But it still was a lot of back and forth drawn between the two going into this particular bout. And it had people kind of like a little bit pumped for this bout. And hey, once that fight took place, the atmosphere was just crazy. I was there at the Barclays Center, man, sellout crowd, over 18,000 people. They say it was almost like 19,000 people in attendance for this event. That was not like a fight card, but when that particular fight happened, it was an event, and I'll go through that a little bit later here. Why I pretty much say that it was an event. Think about it is like Rolly Romero comes in there with the whole thing with the Prince when doves cry. I was like, man, that was crazy. And the Boo Birds was out. The Boo Birds was out there when Rolly Romero was making his way to the ring. He, as far as like selling the fight, man, he really was doing that. He did that part. walking into the ring, with a smug look on his face, or a smirk on his face. It almost, it always looks like he has a permanent smirk on his face sometimes. Um, but he came in there, walked into the ring. He was, had a spring in his step, was bouncing up and down, leaning on the ropes back and forth a lot of times, and was getting himself loose for the fight. And then, of course, Tank Davis comes out there, and he has that song there talking about New York City, and the crowd was just going stupid. Crowd was going stupid, yo. And Tank Davis gets up there, walks up to the ring, steps up them steps, gets to the entrance, gives a salute to the crowd or whatever it is, steps in the ring, hops, around the ring, get himself loose or whatever it is, goes to his corner, the blue corner, hops over there, hops across to the neutral corner. Then he gets near Rolly Romero, and he just has that look towards Rolly Romero, man. And it was just there for like a few seconds, man. Just, him just looking right at Romero. Romero was talking. Tank Davis was just looking at him like, yo, I'm gonna I can't really think like Tank, but I can't say it here real quick, but I mean, we might go through a little bit later, but yeah, he just had that look like, yo, you really don't know what you stepped into, didn't you? All right. So that was like the whole thing going into the introductions by Jimmy Lennon Jr., Showtime, of course, gets in there. They have the introductions, and the fight just goes on, man. And the fight was, kind of like a little bit more than I expected. Did have a prediction that was on the YouTube channel, still on the YouTube channel, reference to Tank Davis and Rolly Romero. But the first round was pretty much a filling out process, but it was more of Rolly Romero kind of like using what he had in order to see if he had some type of an advantage. And that was his height and size. And we know that, Tank Davis is one of the guys that's in the shorter end of the stick in the lightweight division. And Rolly Romero is one of the taller guys actually in the lightweight division. But man, in that particular fight, man, Rolly Romero, yeah, he did make weight, under 135 pounds, which is a lightweight limit, but in that ring, he looked solidly like 145. He looked like 145 in there, and he had that 145, with and on top of that, it just looked like he was about what I'd say, what about like 4 inches taller than Tank Davis. And I know the measurements are like 5'8" and 5'5", but it just looked like a genuine 4-inch height advantage there for Rolly Romero. And I know that the reach was talking about like 68 to 67 for Romero and Davis respectively, but it just looked significantly different seeing there in the ring. And so I just seen like Rolly Romero kind of like using his reach and everything like that, and having some speed. He does have some good speed there, at lightweight, and he was using that to his advantage there to try to catch Davis. Davis was trying to time him, sitting back, there in the southpaw stance, sitting back, taking a few shots. It was pretty much similar to what you had again with Tank Davis and Leo Santa Cruz. We had a guy that was, tall, had a good reach, and was, more active with his hands in Santa Cruz, was able to land shots on Tank Davis. And here with Rolando Romero, yes, he was able to land some shots on Tank Davis, but it was Tank Davis that was, trying to, catch the jabs and the right hands from Rolly Romero, catch him with counters, catch him with leads, lead shots and things like that. Nothing really where it was like he was touching up Rolly Romero. It was almost like every single punch that Tank threw had bad intentions on it. Hooks, uppercuts, body shots, that type of thing. The only like the jabs, the SL jabs, they were more like body shots, like stabbing jabs. Bow, 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 right jab, bow, stabbing to the body, you know. And that was pretty much like the story that you saw in those first couple of rounds was that it was more of like a filling out process. Tank Davis was trying to get the timing down of Rolly Romero, and that um, Romero, was pretty active and looked, kind of well, for those first couple of rounds. But like the fourth round, it looked, for me, it was more of Rolly Romero kind of like saying, "Hey, wait a minute, Rolly Romero's doing some things. He's catching up with some good shots. He's throwing combinations, and there were times when Tank Davis, would throw a shot. He would throw like a left hand, but when he throws the left hand, it's like Rolly Romero would either throw right or left and then follow it up again. So it's like he was willing to take a shot in order to throw two or land two. And because of that, you've seen, Rolly Romero kind of like be a little bit successful, landing some good shots on Tank Davis. But the thing about it is that once he did land some good shots, he ended up kind of I would say smothering up his work a little bit, not really getting back to having his spacing, throwing the jab, setting up shots, throwing feints or anything like that. He didn't really do that when he did actually tag Tank Davis pretty well, over the course of those rounds, like, 4 and 5 or whatnot. But even when he did get some good shots in, Tank Davis like responded with some good either, powerful jabs or lead left hands. Bam. And like I said, every time it just seemed like Tank Davis landed on Romero, it just had like a little more oomph to it. Bam, bam, bam. And bam, 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 bam. Real quick. But it just was like, hey, man, Tank Davis was not out there to play around. Like he was like trying to get that man out of there. I know that he was talking about, hey, he wants to get it to the point where he wants to force Roely's trainer to stop the bout. But in that particular, those particular rounds, every single punch, like I said, just had bad intentions on it. And he was just trying to hurt that man every single time. You know what I'm saying? And so what ended up happening is that there was one point, I think it was like in the fourth or the fifth, where Tank Davis was looking for counter shots. And there was one point where Rolly Romero reached out with the jab, and Tank Davis like tried to get in with the uppercut, but he was just a little bit off, and then they ended up going in the clinch. And he was like, I almost got him. I almost got him. But it just looked like he kind of knew that Rolly Romero just didn't have enough tools to really mix things up. He already used all the weapons or all the tools in his shed, and that it was just a matter of time before Tank Davis was either going to wear him down or just crack him with a good shot. And that's what ended up happening in the sixth round. He, lured. He was like backing up. And they had like posturing back and forth. And then, Rolly Romero just threw like a lazy jab coming in. And then Tank Davis just hit him with that left. Bow! And like I said, with the picture I got, Rolly Romero had a face-to-face meeting with the ring rope and went down. And that was pretty much what got him down. Referee started to count. Rolly Romero got up, but he was pretty much doing the stanky leg or whatever it is. He was rocking side to side, front, back, side to side. And the referee said, nah, buddy. You ain't going back out there. And so Tank Davis scored that 6-round KO victory. 27 wins in his professional career, 25 of those wins now by way of knockout. Gervonta Tank Davis, WBA lightweight champion. Now, before I get more into this, I want to introduce one of our longtime contributors to the show. Coming in from the ATL, it is the Boxing Academic in the building. The Boxing Academic, ladies and gentlemen. What's going on?
Hey, what's going on? How you doing today?
Oh man, I'm good. I'm trying to get some rest, man. I had that was a long night, bro. It was a long night. I didn't actually it was man, bro. I ain't go to sleep until 6 a.m., bro.
Like covering the fight or like doing other stuff?
Well, after covering the fight, doing other stuff, out there and going from Brooklyn to Manhattan. So by the time I was all done, it was like 6 a.m. Before I said, man, I'm stopping and getting some rest, bro. So yeah,
Hey,
man.
Bobby Womack said, "Look like daylight gonna catch me up again."
Yeah, he sure did say that. Man.
But yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure the crowd was awesome. It seemed like they, from the number that was announced, that it was the largest attended boxing event at that arena. So I mean, that's
Oh,
obviously saying something positive.
oh yeah, man. Yeah. That's the thing that was told to Leonard Ellaby, man. He made that announcement at the the post fight presser, that it was after all that, it was 18,970 people. So yeah, that was just wild there, man.
Yeah. So they doing something right. It'd be interesting to see what the price points for his tickets were, because obviously that has something to do with it too. If you comparing him to what, let's say, like a Deontay Wilder's price points were, that obviously means something. I mean, it ain't a normalized scale there, but I mean, I'm not taking away from the success, but definitely the ticket prices has to be taken into account. For example, when people used to say like Anthony Joshua and stuff, and it seemed like their tickets cost like €25, so or the pay-per-views or whatever. That's what I meant to say. €25, which you multiply that times 3, then you get the number that we pay over here in the US. So that matters, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in
But
reference to the pay-per-views, yeah, but like on the gates kind of like a different too. But yeah, the thing for Tank Davis, they're saying like it was the gate could be almost to the point of $5 million. Those tickets were pretty pricey. Initially through Ticketmaster, they were pretty pricey,
so
and
what the floor seats in the nosebleed look like?
the floor seats were like around what 1,500 plus to 3,000 or something like that. I'll have to see if I could Google hit the Google history on that. Um,
But I mean, that's pretty substantial.
yeah,
fifteen
it is for
hundred to 3,000. Yeah, that's pretty good if that was the price points for his floor seats. But I guess they also knew that they was gonna have a crowd full of like stars and stuff too. So
yeah,
maybe the
yeah,
market sort of influenced that price point as well.
yeah, because I think well, no, I was trying to look for it to see if they had a thing for it. But like the resales on SeatGeek were pretty high. So it looked like with that being pretty high, that meant the demand for those tickets were up there. And like you were saying, they what it was had the stars out there. You had Madonna Madonna out there Madonna was out there. Tracy Morgan was out there. Of course, a few of the fighters is out there. Tarver, Zab Judah, Errol Spence, Gary Russell Jr., Sean Porter, Danny Garcia, Ryan Garcia, Demetrius Andrade. Who else I saw out there? Antonio Russell. Um, yeah, there was a lot of them out there. Yeah, Errol Spence, and my guy Kobe Soldier Breedy, was out there with his coach Floyd Seymour. Shout out to them. I was hanging out with them, during the fight. So shout out to them and shout out to their guy, man, Derek DC Curry, there for being out there, with us and stuff like that. So there was a good amount of stars out there, attention and everything, man. It was a crazy scene out there, bro.
Yep,
Crazy.
yep. Yeah, it looked like a good match. In terms of the fight, I think that, I mean, obviously no one can be disappointed. I think people got from, I don't remember the first fight. I mean, you ain't on the Lara fight, but the Lara fight didn't disappoint.
Right.
I don't
Okay.
remember the other fight, but
Yeah.
the co-main and the main, I mean, what else could you ask for? Two people trying to win, and yeah, one was overmatched, but both was overmatched, but
Mm-hmm.
um, at least both of them was trying, and so Tank Davis fighting Rolly Romero, you could tell that he had a deliberate disposition of being patient. Like he wasn't pressing no issue. When he did get the thought of pressing the issue, maybe in the second round, he got hit with something real slick, and he was like, "Oh, hey, let me slow down, cause this boy is strong." He like what's one of them superheroes that got like the big arms? That's how Rolly Romero sort of is. He's just
Mm-hmm.
you can tell he's sort of heavy handed and is probably strong for that weight class. And again, he's very heavy handed. I think he had a good account for himself. I think that someone said that Tank said if you can't hit, then the dude gonna give you a lot of trouble because he gonna come at you and be throwing winging shots. And I
Mm-hmm.
would tend to agree. I mean, obviously he has flaws, but if he uses his strengths, which is his ability to throw heavy shots and keep using that jab, the jab made the fight more interesting. If he wasn't jabbing, it would have been a less interesting fight. But Tank obviously had to evade the jab and then the two that came behind the jab early
Mm-hmm.
on, because I mean, shoot, it was a live. I mean, he was a live person pretty early, and then he had to get around the jab. Tank had to get around the jab, so he pretty much was fighting off his back foot, sort of making Roly follow him, trying to run Roly into shots. Roly was being very disciplined, and again, he was using his jab, which means he showed a good account of himself. And
Mm-hmm.
then you could tell after a certain point he just started getting a bit I would probably even say I ain't gonna say it was careless. I think it was more so that Tank started allowing him to get comfortable, and he forgot that he was in there with somebody who was also a big puncher.
Right. Yeah.
And then I think he threw two of the same shots, like a right hand to the body or whatever. And he threw it one time. I think it might have landed. He threw it again, and instead of him throwing it to the head, he threw it to the body again. And then Tank kind of had seen the shot, and then he countered. He just threw a punch and countered. He just threw it like a looping or even a hook. It was like a looping hook ish punch, and he just threw it. You know what I'm saying? He just tried to like counter, get around the arm, and then Roly, like his momentum of him trying to go to the body, his head was like right there. And he ran into the shot, like his momentum took him into the shot, and obviously we saw that with Pacquiao as well, and they related it to the Pacquiao knockdown. I mean, it was pretty similar. He got hit with a shot. It wasn't. I mean, it was a well placed shot. It wasn't like he wasn't trying to throw it hard. He just like threw a good shot, and the
Yeah.
dude ran into it, and then from there, I mean, it was a good decision to stop the fight. I mean, obviously he didn't have his legs under him. He probably didn't know where he was. He didn't know where he was. He, I mean, he would have just got hurt. Like it wasn't even no reason to,
Word.
yeah, to allow it to go. And so now with them stopping the fight, which is the best thing, he still has the ability to like save his pride and talk crap and be like, well, you caught me, and if it happened again, I'll bust your butt. You know what I'm saying? I'll bust your ass and stuff like that. So I don't think he would have said that if Tank, if they would have let Tank back on him when he was like really compromised, and he
Mm-hmm.
could have been hurt. He could have been seriously hurt. So he had a good account of himself. I think that his stock raised even in getting knocked out. I would say Roly's stock raised. Roly probably impress more people than he didn't impress them. Obviously that was a function of the way Gervonta Davis chose to fight him, but Tank had to fight him that way. He had to fight him to where he sort of let some steam off. But I think Roly raised his stock in getting knocked out. He raised his stock, and I mean he'll be a tough match. He probably will lose, but I'm just saying. I mean I don't know. I would have to see him against like a tear down to see how he does.
Mm-hmm.
But if he jabs, if he jabs and throw them hard shots, I mean, the jab is what's gonna keep him in fights, and then them big, slug fists is what's gonna like equalize. So yeah, I think he raised his stock personally.
Yeah, he did. I mean, he made himself, be more of like a marketing genius, being like the heel of sorts there, in immediate reactions to his ring walk, and his introduction and stuff like that. It says like he knows how to sell a fight, and he does have enough skills to be a tough out with anybody that's out there in the lightweight division. And like you said, with him, having this knockout, and it was more of like a one punch knockout. So it's not like he was seriously hurt, almost like the point like in the Barclays Center years ago when Deontay Wilder knocked out Archer Spilka. It wasn't like that. It was something where he got knocked in. Like I said, he had a meeting with the ring rope, and he got up and did the stinky leg or whatever it was, and he was still okay. You know what I'm saying? But there was reports that when he was walking out of the ring and he was there with his dad, he's like, "Yo, what happened? Which one of y'all hit me?" Or something like that, But he still was able to, talk on the post-fight press conference and said that he said that he wanted a rematch with Tank Davis. He said like he didn't think that uh, he did that Tank did very well. He said like he exposed Tank Davis, said he won every single round. Or he said he had Tank running like a bee the entire fight, that he was terrified of him or something like that. And I'm like, oh my god, man, yeah, he's really marketing himself like he's putting himself in demand to see him in the ring, once again. And it doesn't necessarily, have to be against Tank Davis yet again, but it could be against somebody else there in the lightweight division. I said it was very deep, and I know that you got guys like Tank Davis. I mean, not Tank Davis, but George Kambosos and Devin Haney that are pretty much booked up. You could have, him against someone like I don't know if they'll put him in against an Isak Cruz. I don't know if that matchup would make much sense for them and Mayweather Promotions there, but I mean that's possible. They also got, Michelle Ali Rivera. So that could be a pretty good fight right there. Roly there versus uh, Ali Rivera. And they got a few other guys that are available in the lightweight division that could, make for some good matchups. So Rolly Romero, he did make a good enough account of himself in this particular bout, and probably people would want to see him in the future because I mean, in a sense, boxing, professional boxing or whatever it is kind of like wrestling to a certain extent. It's more about, I know that there's people that, guys or fans want to see, because they like the guy, but there are a good amount of, but some of the most successful fighters are the ones that fans want to see lose. And that, someone like a Floyd Mayweather kind of like, adjusted and kind of like adopted that and made that into his own, and it made him the most successful fighter, financially of all time. Muhammad Ali had that particular type of aura to him, after a certain extent, but there was still a good amount of fans that really loved Muhammad Ali when he was active too. But like I said, man, and like wrestling, if you have the heel, you want to see the heel lose. And it didn't matter, how good the face is or whatever it was. You just wanted that guy to beat the heel. So I think with Rolando Romero, they could kind of like have something there with him to like kind of like say, hey man, I just want to see this guy get knocked the fuck out, and maybe they are able to have some type of matchups like that. Maybe they could have a fight between him and Isaac Cruz, or like I said, him against Ali Rivera. Those are, guys that are, pretty good, could be pretty good matchups for him. So, we'll probably see something like that there in the future for Rolly Romero. I mean, it's his first loss, very early in his career, so to speak. I mean, he only had like 14 fights or so. He had 14 fights before this. 14 fights, 12 of those wins by way of knockout before losing to Tank Davis. So he's still got a good amount of career out there left for him. So there's that. Or maybe somehow, some way they could have another fight with Jackson Marinez or something. Say that Marinez has some unfinished business, wants to get that back. So maybe you do have that for Rolly Romero. But he definitely took that responsibility of being the heel very well over the course of the promotion for this particular bout, and kind of like made that into his own, and it kind of like made the event itself be really good. You know what I'm saying? So there's that. Want to add in another contributor to the podcast, checking in from Tampa. His brother Terrell, is looking forward to next weekend's action, but let's see what he has as far as like thoughts for what happened over at the Barclays Center with Tank Davis and Rolly Romero. Brother Terrell, what's going on?
Hey, what's up, guys? How's everybody doing?
All good, my man. All good.
Doing well. How you doing?
Good. I mean, first of all, I like you just kind of detailing there, Jr. The build up to this fight was actually outstanding. I mean, whether or not the stuff they were talking was real or not, these guys sold this fight. They definitely sold this fight with the hyperbole, the insults, all that stuff like that. And once again, that's like you can only find this in boxing, where you got this type of trash talk, this type of reaction, things like that. Even what was it, Friday, whatever it was, when they were doing the weigh-in face-off, whatever.
Yep.
When Tank actually pushed this guy off the stage. I mean, honestly, you think about it. He pushed the guy off the stage. It's simple. It was simple, but he could have got hurt. He could have twisted ankles, something like that. Something like that could have stopped the fight. Once again, only in boxing do you see crap like this, whatever, right? But thank God we got to see the fight. Honestly, I mean, even though Roly took the TKO loss and everything, his stock actually went up. And the reason why I say that, the way he went into the fight, the way he fought, composed, no wild style, things like that, not throwing no wild punches. He fought a nice composed fight, which is something that he's not typically known for. because going into the fight, we already knew he had like an awkward style, things like that, right? But he actually fought a composed fight.
Mm-hmm.
So kudos for his stock for that. Even though he got knocked out, his stock actually went up. So we should be seeing him in some more matchups here in the future, things like that. So I'm not sure whether he could on what type of people he would fight, but if they match him correctly and build him up from this point, he could have a decent career. Everything. I mean, not only that, just decent paydays to go along with that. But with that said, do you guys know how much was Roly's purse last night? Anybody know?
I haven't seen what the purse would be. Um, it's probably, well, I don't think it's like anything. It was probably like 500K, but I mean, I'll look to see what it is because usually the base purses ain't really that much, for these fights. But probably, he, got a good amount there for this particular bout. It looks like around 500K is what I'm seeing. Um, and they said like for Tank Davis, the guaranteed purse is around like 2 million, or something like that.
Okay.
But that's not, to me, that's not really confirmed. This is through Sporting News that they say it's going to be guaranteed. Like Tank Davis had a guarantee of 2 million, and Rolly Romero had a guarantee of like 500,000. And of course, the whole thing with the pay-per-view buys too, kind of like boosted up a little bit, maybe. So if it's like that, 2,500,000 for a total purse, then that's not that bad. You don't really need top-notch numbers on pay-per-view in order to cover those costs. So if he got, 200,000 pay-per-view buys or whatever it is, or about 250,000 pay-per-view buys or something like that, that should about, be good enough for making money or something like that. But it was like I said before you got on there, Brother Terrell, they had a sellout of, almost 19,000 people in attendance for that event. And that was an event. That was not like a fight card. That was an event because for reals, like the crowd that was there for the pay per view, they really weren't feeling nothing until the main event. Even with Arislandi Lara, taking out Gary Spike O'Sullivan, it was more about everybody was there to see Tank. So if that having that type of event like be that successful from a box office standpoint, that's great. But it kind of like goes to his overall star power, you know. Atlanta, LA, Texas, New York, you know.
Yeah, and just from that point, like I said, even though that's not a lot of money for Roly, definitely price, definitely career high payday for him. But like I said, if his team can recognize the opportunity that they had with their exposure, because at this point, like I said, like you guys talking about, he definitely played the perfect heel. But if they can look past that, further develop his boxing skill set, things like that, make him to a better fighter, better boxer. We know the guy has power. We know that because even in the post fight interview, I was kind of surprised to hear where Tank saying, "No, not yet. Not going to just rush in because the guy's strong." You don't always hear a fighter say that. A fighter doesn't always say that, especially the champion, things like that. So if Rolly can be developed, he can pick this guy with the right fights. This guy can have some decent fights and make some good money within the sport of boxing, things like that. So I mean, with the exposure been on a pay per view, he's also on Showtime's All Access, things like that. So
Yep.
he's already done something that so many already fighters have not even had a chance to. That have been in the industry for a long time, been on pay per view and had that type of exposure. So they need to properly capitalize on that in order to properly build them up even more.
Yeah, and the thing was, it's like they were developing Tank Davis to be the guy like the pay per view guy like Floyd Mayweather from a pop culture standpoint. And Tank Davis has his relationships with various people in entertainment and sports or whatever it is, and also pop culture. And that is, kind of like skyrocketed its popularity among the, what is it, the 18 to 35 age group. And so, what you saw, in there was a lot of those people, wanting to see Tank Davis in a fight. And it just kind of like goes into the whole thing with the, the quote unquote casual fan, in that if you're going to see a boxing fight, most likely you're going to go in there to see if someone's going to get knocked out. And with Tank Davis, given his knockout ratio, that's what people expect. That's why it's basically an event, wherever he goes now. So that's what they kind of like we're seeing here in this particular bout. And they got they got what they were looking for. I almost got what I was looking for. I predicted Tank KO 5, but it ended up being the 6th round. But everybody, got most the fans there got what they were looking for. So that was satisfying in there to that particular bout. And like I said, I mean, it's just a matter of what would be next there for Tank Davis. I know that there was one particular fighter that was in attendance at this bout. They did lose some money, but he was in attendance at this particular bout by the name of Ryan Garcia. And Ryan Garcia is slated to fight once again in July, under the Golden Boy banner. But after that, they gotta be like full speed ahead in trying to make the fight between him and Tank Davis, because I mean, some people around boxing circles have said it before. Tank Davis versus Ryan Garcia is going to be the biggest fight in boxing. It's going to be the biggest fight in boxing because both of those guys, young, undefeated, flashy, in their own sense, and they have a following, a big following. Both of them do.
So you saying big in terms of casual fan appeal?
Yep. Like I said, pop culture, social media stuff, followers, that type of thing. It's that whole thing that people were talking about with the Jake and Logan Paul joint, right? Ryan Garcia, be around the Paul brothers, but he kind of like grasped the concept of bringing those followers to your fights. That's how you would make money. And I know that his last bout, Ryan Garcia against Emmanuel Tago. Yeah, it was Emmanuel Tago, but it still was like around $1 million or something like that for a live gate. And you have him against Tank Davis, who almost like pulled. It might be a $5 million live gate there at the Barclays Center for yesterday. That's going to be a really, really lucrative fight for all parties involved. We just got to, get the final pay-per-view numbers for this one, and it just puts in all the elements for this fight to happen. You can't go back on it now. I know that Ryan Garcia was talking that trash last year about, we were trying to make a fight with Tank Davis, and then he switches up and he says, it might be against Manny Pacquiao, and it was like a whole type of mess. But now you can't miss this. You can't miss out with this one. And I know it's going to be probably sometime early next year, I would say, because of the events that are coming up this year. But they still got to be able to say, we got to make this fight happen while we got the momentum for it. You know what I mean?
Well, the thing about that, what's interesting about all of what you're speaking about right now, is we already know that Tank's contract with Mayweather is up, right? And from that point, what it looks like he's going to continue to work with Al Heyman to get his fights, things like that. And what's more interesting too, Tank is demanding big fights now. He's tired of having that label on him of like not having really fought anybody, things like that. Mm-hmm. And the thing about it, he has not fought a marquee name at 135. He has not. He's definitely entertained us. He's definitely built himself up into a pay-per-view star with his gate totals and things like that.
So Santa Cruz ain't a marquee name?
I said at 135. At 135.
Oh. Okay, I didn't know what division it was. I got you.
Yeah. So with it said, the main thing, he's demanding the big fights. We all know he's not gonna be able to touch Haney, even though they're going back and forth right now, which is good. It's good. But Haney's locked up for at least to the middle of next summer before he's done with what's going on with Camboso, things like that. So other than that, I mean, the Garcia fight could happen this year, and the reason why I say that, we know Canelo's coming back in March to fight Triple G. I'm sorry, in September, so that date's locked up. It's possibly for either October or December.
Yep.
With I think Crawford Spence being targeted for November, so that's not going to happen. Things like that. But the main thing, Tank wants a big fight, and at this point now, he's going to put the onus on Al Heyman to get that done for him. And at this point, there's no reason why it should not happen. They want it, the fans want it, and then it makes perfect financial sense for everybody involved, for both parties, both sides, things like that. So, I mean, I'm glad that Tank is finally going to have his independence, and hopefully, because I said, Al Heyman can make the magic work like that. So,
I mean. Well, on that note, I kind of like said it even before this fight and this came from Coach Calvin Ford, of course, the head trainer there for Gervonta Tank Davis. He says it's more of like Gervonta having the training wheels being taken off there for, Mayweather Promotions. Because, in previous fights, when he's had a lot of those fights, you really didn't see Tank Davis really talk that much. It was more of Floyd talking, or it was like Leonard Elby talking or something like that. But over the past few fights, you've seen him kind of like be more vocal, more, talkative. His delivery is there better, like we were saying earlier, reference to trash talk. He has all of that down. So it's more of like him saying, okay, now I'm ready to be on my own and push myself on my own, where I don't really need, my promoter or co-promoter or anybody like that to really talk for me. I got it. And so they're just saying, hey, all right, you got it. Go ahead. You can fly. We're letting you go out into the air. You better start flapping your wings like Coco Beware or something. You know what I'm saying? So he's out there flying, and like I was saying, he wants those big fights. And with him being in the lightweight division, I think there's only one fight that's available for him right now. Since there's a couple of guys that are pretty busy, as of right now, they're pretty much having a press conference. And that's George Camboso Jr. and Devin Haney. So they have their whole thing going down. So to me, that leaves one person out there, Vasyl Lomachenko. And I think that is going to be the next fight in line for Tank Davis. If it's not Ryan Garcia, it's going to be Vasyl Lomachenko. And I think that one should be like or people still think that Lomachenko's the pound grade, the maestro in the ring and all that type of stuff. And Gervonta Tank Davis is like, yo, let me get him in the ring. Get him in the ring. His trainers are like, get Lomachenko in the ring. They call him Lemonchenko. So they're like, get him in the ring. And that would be the big fight that, really could catapult him as far as like, okay, he's fighting him. All right, you can't say that he's, going up against quote unquote guys that aren't supposed to be in the ring with him, So I was gonna call him Lomachenko. Lomachenko, I would feel like it's a fight for Tank Davis if it's not going to be Ryan Garcia.
A quick question for you guys, real quick. So right now we're talking about Tank versus Lomachenko, or Tank versus Ryan Garcia.
Mm-hmm.
Again, Tank is going to be independent of Mayweather from that contract. He's still going to pretty much be an independent entity and work with Al Heyman. Will there be any reluctance to make those fights happen from the Al Heyman perspective, being those guys are with top rank?
No. To quote the words of WBO welterweight champion Terrence Crawford, if it makes sense, the fight will get made. If it doesn't make sense, then the fight won't get made. And I think fights against Vasily Lomachenko and fights against Ryan Garcia make sense. You know, my thing with Lomachenko is I think he's affordable. You know, I think it's affordable from a purse standpoint. So, like, you know, you're going to say, hey, Vasily Lomachenko would want like $3 million or something like that. No. Like, when it comes to the lightweight division, the two, like, it's Tank Davis and it's Devin Haney that pulled the biggest purses in the lightweight division. Everyone else is pretty much like $1 million or below, maybe. I mean, that's what it's looking like, you know. So I would say like someone like a Lomachenko is affordable, it's manageable, it's doable, and Al Heyman would be like, hey, let me make a phone call to Bob Arum and say like, hey, Bob Arum, if you still have Vasily Lomachenko in the contract, we want to make a deal for him to fight Gervonta Tank Davis, and we'll pay such and such amount of money. And Bob Arum would be like, well, look, I know, Vasily Lomachenko is a great fighter. But look, you're going to have to pay more money. And that's how the whole back and forth negotiation will be. But some will eventually get worked out because with Tank Davis selling out arenas, it don't matter if it's like I said, Atlanta, what it was like San Antonio or something. Yeah, San Antonio, right? With the Santa Cruz, the Los Angeles with the Eastside Cruz, and then here in Brooklyn, here with Rolly Romero, he'll sell out another thing. But if not, but if it's against Lomachenko, they may send it over to Las Vegas. Las Vegas, Nevada, Gervonta Tank Davis versus Vasily Lomachenko. Or it would be Tank Davis versus, Ryan Garcia in Las Vegas. Both of those fights are going to be in Las Vegas. Both of those fights I would say would be in Las Vegas. That's how much interest, that's how much money that those fights can generate. And so I'd say it's like either one of those two fights for Tank Davis here if he wants to have big fights going forward. After those two, I don't know what else would be out there for him unless if he stays at 135 and potentially, even though I don't see this quite happening, I don't think whatchamacallit would give him up. But you also have Devin Haney if he goes to those two fights with Kambosos, or if one person goes up one more division, Shakur Stevenson could be one of those guys. But right now, the two fights for Tank Davis against Ryan Garcia and Vasily Lomachenko there at 135.
Yeah, I agree. And just looking back once again at last night I was actually observing Tank's performance. I said him actually his fighting style, things like that, his movement around the ring. One of the first things that came up to me around the third round is how would he project against Shakur Stevenson, master boxer at this young age. He got he's a few years younger than Tank. I think Shakur Stevenson around 24, 25, where Tank's around 20. Right? So I'm like, man, I said, honestly, I think it'll be a great fight. It's definitely going to be a great fight when and if it happens. But I think that even right now, Stevenson has the boxing ability advantage above Tank Davis. Now, we know at 135, Tank has to equalize with that big right hand and the power. We know that. But both hands. He has power in both hands. We know that. But I think if I'm Shakur Stevenson, I'm like, I kind of would be claiming like, hey, y'all need to. I want to fight this dude right now because I know I can beat him. I mean, because the thing about it, on top of that, but at the same time, I'm looking at the fight like, wow. I think Stevenson would really give Tank a lot of problems and things like that. And even an outlier, someone like a Teofimo Lopez, who's basically on the sidelines watching things like that. So basically, what I'm saying, no fighter is unbeatable, right? And at this point in time, someone like I said, Shakur Stevenson, he probably sees some advantages that he can exploit. Even Tio, for definitely bring a good size advantage and things like that. But we need to see him back in the ring first before we can pass further judgment on him to see what he's capable of.
I mean, with Tank don't throw enough punches, so I think a lot of the guys will at least compete with him. If they don't, or before they get knocked out, they will compete with him because out of sheer volume, he gonna be down on rounds unless he hurts somebody.
Yeah, yeah. What it was saying, for the fight for CompuBox, it was like he threw like 35 or landed 35 total punches or something like that over the course of those 6 rounds. So, he's just sitting there waiting. Bam, bam, bam. You throw something, I'm gonna throw a counter. Bam. He doesn't like really. It doesn't like seem like he's very assertive as far as like coming forward with a jab and things like that. Does he have that ability? Yes, he does. But it's more of like he wants to wait for his opponent to make a mistake and make them pay for it. So that's what we, got out of Tank Davis, particularly in this fight against Rolando Romero, where he just waited for Romero to make a mistake and then he just, popped him for it. Even though Romero was game for a good amount of those rounds, and fighting back when Tank Davis was throwing a couple of shots when it was like square up. So you did get a pretty good action fight out of this. I don't know what some of these people are saying, talking about, oh, that was a boring fight or whatever. No, it wasn't. You got something where you had what the crazy part about it is that some of these columnists and journalists or whatever it is will call something like that boring. But if it's a couple of other guys that they pretty much like lean towards, they'll say it's a great tactical fight. But that's a whole nother story. But I'm just saying that they're straight up and straight out, because if it's like a good tactical bout, and like what I say at the end of these shows, point of boxing is to hit and not get hit. Isn't that the point of boxing? I thought that was the point of boxing. I thought that was part of the Queensberry rules of boxing.
Definitely.
But it looks like some of these columnists are kind of leaning more towards the people that they kind of call casuals. But that's a whole nother thing too. Yeah. So there's that. But that kind of like wraps up the combo for now in reference to Tank Davis and Rolly Romero. Moving forward, we got next week. The big bout in lightweight finally gonna happen. Undisputed, the real undisputed, the undisputed of undisputeds, or whatever they want to call it in the poster that they had for a promotional poster. But it's the undisputed lightweight title bout. George Kambosos Jr. versus Devin Haney. Both of these guys are undefeated. George Kambosos Jr. is the unified lightweight champion. Devin Haney is the WBC lightweight champion. You could go on the WBCboxing.com page. You can look at the thing for world champions, click on lightweight, and they will show you right there that Devin Haney is the WBC champion. All right. So because of that, and because the IBF, the WBO, and the WBA call Devin Haney the WBC champion, that means that there is a dispute as to who it will be an overall champion, right? So there's that. Now, it just looked like they had the press conference there over in Australia. It's going to be Marvel Stadium, Australia, for Saturday, June 5th in Australia. Friday, it will be Friday, over here in the States or whatever it is, something like that. It's gonna be on real late over here stateside. But George Kambosos Jr., of course, unified champion, defeated Teofimo Lopez. Scored a first round knockdown on Teofimo Lopez, and did survive being knocked down himself in order to win the bout by decision to become the unified champion. Of course, was looking for that deal, the big deal, big network deal, or whatever it was, in order for him to have more than one fight against someone. and they were able to work something out. Had Devin Haney, who's been bouncing around. He's been on Showtime. He's been on the Zone. He's, had his own deal. He has Devin Haney Promotions, working as a free agent. Like I said, one of the highest paid lightweights out there. But he ended up signing with the right promoter, Bob Arum, I guess, for a multi-fight deal in order to have a 2-fight deal here with George Kambosos Jr. It's almost similar to the 2-fight deal that Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury had when Tyson Fury signed with Top Rank, but this time it's going to be back-to-back. It's not something where Tyson Fury can, have a couple of fights and then there's that and whatever. So now it'll be the first fight, George Kambosos, Devin Haney. I feel like it's going to be a very, very, very good fight. George Kambosos, initially didn't really, give him that much credence before his bout against Teofimo Lopez. But in that fight against Teofimo Lopez, he was like very confident that he would beat Teofimo Lopez, and he was able to do that. And he's going to use his activity and his speed to kind of like try to get the better of Devin Haney. But I feel like, Devin Haney isn't someone that's going to be faster. He's there. He's there. He's got a longer reach. He has a longer reach, even though he's shorter. He has a longer reach, and he's going to, manage everything that's going to happen there in reference to going into this bout. Didn't necessarily get any updates as far as like his father, Bill Haney, being able to go over to Australia. Hopefully that was situated or whatnot. But if not, then Haney will have, of course, cards stacked against him in reference to that. But I think that he has enough experience, and especially as a pro, he's been fighting since he was like 15 or something like that. Had fights over in Mexico, a few times before going fighting in the States. So he'll be ready here for this particular bout here against George Kambosos Jr. over in Marvel Stadium in Australia, man. So first I want to go to Terrell. What's your early thoughts here about this particular fight?
Yeah, it's crazy when you look at everything that's with all the cards stacked up against Haney. First of all, like you stated, he's going to definitely have the speed advantage, and that's going to need to be his key thing, pumping that jab and just being first to the punch, things like that, right? But like I said, not just that, just being demoralized, not having his father not be able to come to the fight, and that's no fault. It's no fault of nobody's. I mean, something that happened 30 years ago, you really can't fault nobody for that. That's, as we say, shit happens, right? And that just didn't come to light until now into the situation. But one of the big things too is like the fact that when you look at the purse disparity, basically at this point, I forgot the exact number what Haney's getting right now for this fight, and come in and been, like you said, he's been one of the more higher paid lightweight fighters. But for this fight, I forgot what numbers he's getting. But he's basically getting, I'm not gonna say next to nothing, but he's basically betting on himself to make them to go out under and get the win, things like that. Because his price in comparison to Kambosos is like a big disparity right there. Yeah. But another big thing too is the judges. I was reading this week. There's not going to be an American judge. There's not going to be an Australian judge. So I forgot where the judges are from, but so because one of the thoughts of that people have is like, oh, Haney's going to go down there, put on a great performance, and get hosed by the judges. So once again, no judge from Australia, no judge from America. I forgot where the judges are, where they're from, but I mean, it's up to him. It's up to him. And the corner of Yoel Judah, getting him through this fight and things like that. So, I mean, it's tremendous pressure. And like I said, with all the cards stacked up against him, things seemingly not going this way. But this is a part of boxing that we have to. It's also a part of boxing, the mental aspect. So, despite fighting the fight itself, if you don't go in there with the right mindset, you're gonna lose, things like that. So hopefully he can overcome all that, get good encouragement from his team while it's over there, from Yoel Judah, things like that, and going in and execute a good game plan despite what happens in the ring. And honestly, I'm just expecting something crazy for him to happen hopefully during the course of the fight, where it's gonna be something like a flash knockdown being called against him, something like that. He needs to prepare for everything, any and everything that can happen, any and everything. So that's my viewpoint from this point.
Yeah, I mean the thing for you talking about the purse payouts. It looks like Kambosos could be paid up to 10 million, while Haney would be paid 2.8 million for this particular bout. So that's what the reports are floating out about this particular bout for the purses on that. So yeah, he's taking a significant amount of money, less money there, especially in reference to the purse split. That he is, kind of like really putting the risk out there that he wants to say, hey, I want to show the world I'm the best lightweight out there. And I'll take a pay cut in order to get this fight here for the undisputed lightweight championship. And so that's kind of like how he's moving with that. Boxing academic, what's your thoughts on this fight coming up here next weekend? You got it. Boxing academic, going once, going twice. Where you at?
So my thoughts are, I think it should be a good fight. I think that the clash of styles will make it interesting. I think Kambosa's sort of, come forward, press the action style will clash nicely against Devin Haney's sort of, it ain't his style, whatever style he has. And it'd be interesting to see if Devin raises his issue. It's sort of like it's like just there. It's not like it's not like I'm trying to find good words here, but maybe y'all get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think he's saying that Hayes pretty much going to be a counter puncher. He can't just walk in. So it's going to employ a counter puncher, jab, things like that. And
yeah, it's just a straightforward style. That's all I'm saying. It ain't. But yeah, so I think it's going to be interesting. If they are fighting for the undisputed, then what belt does Gervonta Davis have? If they fighting for it, what belt does Gervonta Davis have?
Yeah, that is, like I said, the WBA regular lightweight championships. That is similar to like what Arislandi Lara currently has with the WBA regular middleweight title. Yes, he defended that against Gary Spike O'Sullivan in that co-feature bout in the Barclays Center. Yeah, that's similar to what Tank Davis has. So the WBA Super Championship in lightweight division is held by George Kambosos Jr. So that's why it's like saying like, hey, it's similar to like say if someone has the WBC interim title. And that's basically what it is. It's an interim title, in a sense, So that's kind of like how that WBA lightweight title is viewed. It's like an interim title. But with Tank Davis, it really doesn't matter what type of belts he has. It's the status that just makes him bigger than pretty much everyone else in the lightweight division. So, but yeah, here it's going to be undisputed Kambosos versus Haney. And yeah, like you said, it's going to be a little bit of different styles there. I think Devin Haney is going to be more of like a weighted out counterpuncher type of style, use a little bit of defense here and there, even though it's not like he's, like what I would say, like 100 rating in defense. If you were thinking like NBA Live or Madden NFL or whatever it is, like his defensive rating wouldn't necessarily be like 100 or 99 or something like that, but it's something to the point where he could, see what Kambosos is doing and kind of like catch it and respond to it. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of like how that goes.
Yeah, and what's kind of curious in regards to that, prior to Haney being signed to fight Kambosos also maintained, I want the best fight. I want who's going to bring the best fight to me. At that point, we know he beat Teofimo Lopez. We know how that fight transpired from that point. And honestly, from that point, Kambosos that wanted what's my man? Ukrainian dude. What's my
Lomachenko.
Yeah, he wanted Lomachenko. He thought that he can give him the best fight, things like that. And even until that when the events overseas that happened, which no one saw coming, when he's kind of in a sense forced to fight Haney, and even Haney pointed out in the news conference like, "Hey, you didn't want to fight me," and that's something that Kambosos would never even admit to, even now at this point. But the thing about it, Haney's been the champion for quite some time now, so he's not the type of fighter that's gonna come in just trying to coast, stay away, things like that. He does engage when he does need to engage, things like that. So we do definitely do expect to see a good fight. And like I said, for Haney, there's no way in the world he can go in there and take it easy. That's not gonna happen. Not gonna happen, because if he does that, he's definitely not gonna be getting that fight, getting the win for that fight. He's gonna need to go above and beyond in his performance in order to get the win from this guy. Because like I said, me personally, I think he needs to look for anything like things going against him, or some kind of fake knockdown that the ref called against him, low blows, things like that. So, like I said, the cards are stacked against him. Hopefully, he realizes that middle aspect of this fight and is able to overcome things that can and will happen to him, things like that. So, but bottom line, it's gonna be a great fight. I mean, because the thing about it, we know Kambosos is gonna be trying to come in and show out for his hometown, his home country, things like that. At the same time, Haney has more than one compelling reason in order to give a great performance as well. So, with that said, we should great fight coming up next weekend.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good little scrap there between George Kambosos Jr. and Devin Haney there for the undisputed lightweight championship. Like I said, it's gonna you got two unbeaten guys. They're putting their unbeaten records on the line, putting their belts on the line. There to kind of like say who's the champion there. So that's gonna be really a really good scrap. I know that they're having like a whole bunch of Australian and New Zealand guys that are going to be featured in this bout. I think they have one guy that's part of the Haney camp that's also included in this card. I think that's Amari Jones there, but you also will have the Maloney brothers in action in this card, and Junior Fa from basically New Zealand. As part of this card here against Lucas Brown. So that's going to be what they have here for the card at Marvel Stadium in Melbourne, Australia. But also they're on June 4th or whatever it is. You're going to have the unified bantamweight, super bantamweight title on the line. Excuse me, super bantamweight title with the 2021 Boxing Source Fighter of the Year, Cool Boy Stephen Fulton, taking on Daniel Rahman, former unified champion himself there. But the WBC and WBO super bantamweight titles will be on the line. Stephen Fulton is there undefeated, 20-0. Daniel Rahman with a record of 29 wins, 3 losses, and 1 draw. Rahman, had his bout against MJ Akhmadaliev, where it looked like the judges put favored Akhmadaliev in that bout, but a good number of people thought that Rahman won that fight. But now he's going up against Stephen Fulton, who claimed that he wanted to have some smoke against Daniel Rahman, but Rahman was kind of, saying, nah, I ain't want to fight him. I ain't want to quite fight him, at the time. And so now we basically have this fight here that's going to be in Minnesota. And also the co-feature bout, David Morrell Jr. against Kelvin Henderson in the super middleweight division. David Morrell Jr., of course, undefeated, kind of like making his home over there in Minnesota. They're going up against Kelvin Henderson, with Henderson with a record of 15 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw. Like Mike, brother, Boxing Academic was saying in reference to the WBA titles, well, this one here is for the WBA World Super Middleweight title. And we know that the super champion is Canelo Alvarez. So, super champion, regular champion, tomato, whatever. That's what it is. There with David Morrell Jr. And this is the same David Morrell Jr. that has been calling out former WBC super middleweight champion David Benavidez for some time now. And if David Morrell gets past his fight against Kelvin Henderson, I'm seeing that fight being next. David Benavidez versus David Morrell. That's what it's looking like from Benavidez's promoter, Sam Solikowicz. And so, hey, that would be a really, really, really good fight, especially if it happens here in 2022. That could be talk about a co-feature bout. That would be a co-feature bout for you right there, man.
Hey, how good is David Morrell? I know he has a small professional record, but a big background. But how good is this guy?
He's really good, man. He's really good. He's one of those Cuban standouts. The record that they have posted on there for his amateur career is 29 wins and 5 losses. He's being like Cuban national champion, been involved in the World Series of boxing. So he's very, very, very solid fighter there. So he has those six wins, 5 of those wins by way of knockout. He's already had been through 12-round bouts. He won the interim title back in 2020 and went through 12 rounds for that, and so he's kind of had these 12-round bouts here since his 3rd professional bout, and he's now going into his 7th professional bout. So yeah, he's people see that he's the goods out there. So he's really up there, man, as far as like being a really, really good fighter, especially there in the super middleweight division.
Yeah, I keep hearing his name. I keep hearing the back and forth that him and Benavidez have been going through. Like I said, just haven't seen him fight. Need to kind of look him up and just get a good sample of who he is and things like that. What he can do as far as his size, comparison to the division, things like that. So.
Yeah, so I mean, he's pretty good up there. He had a fight against Alante Fox back in December. That was like the same day that they had the Paul versus Woodley 2 event in Tampa. They had David Morrell against Alante Fox over in the Minneapolis Armory at that same night. So this is pretty much like his home, so to speak, the Minneapolis Armory, and is yet another fight there in that same venue against Calvin Henderson. So, but you have the main event there as Stephen Fulton there versus Daniel Roman. So that's kind of like the schedule there for that particular day. So it's going to be a really active weekend. So that's what we are looking at here for this week in action over there for the sport of boxing. I know that later on, after the fights between Fulton Ramon, David Morrell, Kelvin Henderson, and the Kambosos versus Haney, you're also going to have like on that following Tuesday, Naoya Inoue versus Nonito Donaire in a rematch. So that's going to be something that's will be a good number of people that are going to be looking forward to that particular fight. I'll probably get into that a little bit more in the following episode of the Boxing Source Radio Show. So we're gonna, kind of like table that for next week. I was hoping to get another person to come on here to speak about his adventures, over to the south. But I think that's going to be tabled for a later time there. So for me, that's pretty much what I got for this particular episode. Anybody have any important thoughts here before I bring this to a close?
Yeah, I would say in closing, cool boy Steph. I think this is going to be his second defense of his title, right?
Well, it'll be the first time that he defends the unified titles after defeating.
So just with that said, hope he just got to have a great performance and get settled in and perform like a champion that he is, a unified champion, things like that. Because at this point, with 2 belts, he's definitely the targeted man. So hope he can get settled in and give a great performance off. So there's no chinks in armor whatsoever.
Yeah, if there is win against Brandon Figueroa Jr. there, or Brandon Figueroa, that's how he became unified champ. He had the WBO, won the WBC, and now this is gonna be his first defense as a unified WBC and WBO super bantamweight champion. So if he does, have a good performance here against Daniel Rahman, who's a very good fighter, regardless, that will really kind of say, hey, this guy here, Stephen Fulton, should be, considered as one of those guys there, not just in the super bantamweight division, but around that weight class where you got 115s, 118s, 122s, 126s. He should be mentioned there as one of those top guys around that weight class, because they talk about Naoya Inoue or Chocolatito Gonzalez or Juan Francisco Estrada. Stephen Fulton got to be mentioned there among those names too. So I think he's going to kind of go out there and kind of show that he has that type of ability to be one of those better fighters there in those weight classes. But with that being said, that would kind of bring to a close to this particular episode of the Boxing Source Radio Show. We'll follow it up here with another show going up next week, pretty much around the same time frame or whatever it is live. But y'all be able to, if you have it, listen to it live. You can catch it through iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, whatever you use for your podcast apps there, Anchor.fm or whatever it is. But like I say at the end of every show, folks, supporting boxing is to hit and not get hit, not to stand and trade. On that note, folks, I'm out. Have a good evening, everybody.
All right, later.